Hello again. Welcome back. My name is Lewis. Hope everyone had a great weekend. I had a fantastic weekend because my bachelor's degree arrived in the mail. Look at that. I was talking about it in the last video. I was so excited for it to arrive, and I have just been thrilled about it ever since. But to get into it, today's topic is going to be about prison abolition. And I just finished Dr. Angela Davis's book on Our Prisons Obsolete. That was the title of it. And just talking about just the inhumanity, the human rights violations, just everything, the mental instability that comes direct cause of being incarcerated. And so she starts with talking about how from 1852 to 1952, California built 9 prisons. It took 100 years to get 9 prisons. But the 80s came, the Reagan era came, and it took 5 years to get 9 more. And they doubled their prison population, the number of prisons in the state in 5 years what it took to do in a century. And so Reagan became one of the first politicians. I want to say Nixon was the first to take a tough on crime stance and a law and order stance. And we're going to bring law and order back to the American streets. And so he expanded our prison system, and it was by no mistake that communities of color, black communities, were hit the hardest by this. Black people are 5 times more likely to be incarcerated than their white counterparts. Black men specifically have a ratio of 12.2 to 1 of incarceration of their white counterparts. And so politicians begin to push the illusion that prisons will provide safer communities, and we need prisons to get these criminals and evildoers off the streets. You don't want to be around those, do you? And in rural areas where these prisons were beginning to be constructed, they promised a new economic promise because these communities don't have much of an economy. So you could work at them, you could help build them, make some money, and it was a pollution-free, recession-proof way to grow your economy. So people became just infatuated with the new prison industrial complex. And that refers to the technology, construction, food services, just anything, any industry that can why can't I remember the word? That can benefit from the construction of more prisons, the presence of prisons in our society. Construction companies experience a boom. Surveillance technologies experience a boom to be put into prisons. Food services. Starbucks, major corporation, uses prison labor to package their merch, their goods. Universities in California have been guilty of receiving furniture made by prisoners. And so we start to see prison become not only just a permanent fixture in our society, it becomes a capitalist scheme. We start to see that companies are incentivized just to benefit off the backs of the prison system. It becomes a way to make more money. It just becomes basically what I said, a capitalist scheme. And so we see the just massive population of prisoners begin to grow. We see that communities of color, everything in that community is being criminalized. We're starting to criminalize the symptoms of our social problems rather than actually attacking the problem, because if you attack the problem, then you lose your staff. Prisoners become staff to these corporations. And even back in the convict leasing days, Peachtree Street, very popular street in Atlanta to this very day, was laid by prison labor, black prison labor. And so now we're starting to see, like I said, corporations using the labor, and it becomes beneficial to just grow the prison population. It does not make sense to the companies for us to the companies and to the correctional facility itself to start letting people go. It does not make sense to the criminal justice system to give people shorter sentences, because the more prisoners you have on your roster, just the more product you're going to be able to make. And so we start to use prisons to combat every societal problem we have. And we start to treat the symptoms of the issue. If you have the flu, you're not just going to treat the cough, you're going to treat the entire virus. I don't want just the cough to go away. I'm not just going to take a cough drop and I'll rather stay nauseous and weak and feverish. No, I want to take something that's going to take everything away, so I don't have to have the flu anymore. And so we criminalize homelessness. Someone sleeping on a park bench can be taken to jail. Drug addiction, that's a mental illness. We take them to jail instead of giving them proper services, instead of giving someone a place to live. We see communities that have been devastated, gutted, underfunded schools, nothing in that community to just keep it going, to sustain it. And people are standing on the block selling who knows what to make ends meet, to feed themselves, and robbing and stealing and doing anything to sustain themselves. And rather than us getting to the root of these conditions, we throw them in jail. But what have you solved? The problem is still there. It's only worse now, because now you're ripping families apart. So it only gets worse. And so I believe that we need to take a more restorative, transformative justice approach. I believe that we need to allow these offenders, and I'm very aware that people commit violent crimes. And I believe that we need to allow for an open dialogue. We need to allow these people to actually repay their debt to society, because we claim that they have repaid their debt, but when they come out, they can't go to school. FAFSA's not going to fund that. No one's going to hire a felon. And then, so they start to lay the ground for recidivism, which is the tendency of a convict to reoffend. They start to lay that groundwork in prison, so they make it just like a revolving door. 1 year tops, they know they'll see you again, because you can't get an education. So what societal benefit do we see from a stupid prisoner besides the prison establishment itself? What benefit is it that you're not allowing people to just further their knowledge? You don't know what this person's education background is. They want to read, they want to learn something, so when they come out, they can apply it. But prisons have been known to take these services away from their inmates. They take any type of recreational, just anything that they can find some sort of joy in to alleviate the circumstances that they're in, they don't have anymore. So when they come out, they just don't know what to do. They don't have any type of skill. The school they went to didn't prepare them for anything but besides to go to prison. They didn't teach them anything. And we, I'm going to go to, Angela Davis speaks exactly to the point that I am trying to make. She says, effective alternatives involve both transformation of the techniques for addressing crime and the social and economic conditions that track so many children from poor communities, and especially communities of color, into the juvenile system and then onto prison. So we need to actually get to the root of what's causing teenagers to commit crimes. I don't believe for one moment that a 15-year-old wants to sell dope, or wants to go rob something, or even wants to do dope, wants to get addicted to drugs. There is something that we are not addressing. But instead of addressing the problem, we create these massive just hellholes to throw them in. We don't want to address the problem. It's easier to just use this blanketed term of criminal and throw everyone in there that just remotely meets that criteria. So that, and with this, before I even go on, the ideological and just general public's view of prison began to change once our political leaders started to take these harsh stances on crime and take these glowing stances on just expanding prisons. We're going to make sure we protect you, so we're going to throw anyone and everyone in prison. And it is not. They were not ignorant to the fact that crime has always been attached to the black community, communities of color, I'll say. And so they spoke in coded language, as politicians do. And when they say we're going to throw everyone in jail and we're going to throw these bad people, these evildoers in prison, they know who they're speaking about, and they know that the audience that they're speaking to fully comprehends what they're getting at. And so that is easier for the general public to digest, because black people have always been marginalized anyway. So we can just throw them in jail. I don't care. That's how they feel. Like, why would I care? They're bad anyway. And so moving on from that, before I move on from this, When They See Us, docuseries, limited series by Ava DuVernay, tells the story of the Exonerated Five, and just not only how they were treated by the media and the criminal justice system, how it was when they went to prison, specifically Corey Wise, the trauma and the mental instability that comes from being incarcerated. In what way is locking someone up in a cage going to correct them? We call this correctional euphemistically. We know that in no way does it correct anyone. It makes them worse. It just, it crumbles any form of just mental stability. And they come out with, who knows, PTSD, just, you name it. They have experienced a world of trauma in an institution that promises to correct. It says on the name, Ohio Correctional Facility. Name the state correctional facility. And so, of course, we've come to find out that that is very, very false. And Angela Davis states, particularly in the United States, race has always played a central role in constructing presumptions of criminality. After the abolition of slavery, former slave states passed new legislation revising slave codes in order to regulate the behavior of free blacks in ways similar to those that had existed during slavery. So the attachment and the likening to people of color to criminals is as old as the nation itself. Because even after slaves were emancipated and jails were predominantly white people still believed that these newly freed slaves were causing the most trouble. So we move in to modern day, we move through the civil rights, we go into the 70s and 80s, and we start to see the media, television, promoting the same ideology, the objectivity of journalism, which is just steeped in white supremacy anyway. We start to see them, and then this comes into the public's mind that these are the people that my president is protecting me from. I don't want them on the streets either. So it becomes very easy for us to just push it to the back of our mind that, sure, prison is normal. It's a staple and it's a necessity in our society that becomes just the general consensus surrounding the discussion of prison. And police departments, this is from the text, police departments in major urban areas have admitted to the existence of formal procedures designed to maximize the numbers of African Americans and Latinos arrested, even in the absence of probable cause. So they go into these communities, and as I stated before, it is a procedure to just meet your quotas, as we know police departments have. They are run like a business. Meet the quota of arresting as many black people as you can, put them in the system. 97% of prisoners didn't even have a fair trial or any trial, and then throw them in prison. And like I said, prison became just a catch-all, a cure-all, quote unquote, for dealing with society's problems. They don't want to actually put in the effort to fix these issues, because then we don't have anything else to talk about. Then we don't have the free labor that prisons provide. And so I don't want this video to be too long, so I'm going to just clip through some of these highlighted parts of the book. I'm going to leave you all with one last thing before I go. No, I won't go to that one. I think I already touched on that. I'm sorry. I I will be right back with you all in a second. Oh, what societal interest is served? This is from the text. What societal interest is served by prisoners who remain illiterate? What societal benefit, what social benefit is there in ignorance? How are people corrected while in prison if their education is outlawed? Who profits other than the prison establishment itself from stupid prisoners? So if you're sending these people in there to better themselves and become productive members of society, but you provide nothing to do that, what are you really doing? What is really the purpose of prisons? That's why this book is called Our Prisons Obsolete. Since you're not going to rise to the occasion and rise to the responsibilities that you've promised to, that your name says that you're going to do, correctional and rehabilitation, then why are you here anyway? We can put that money to something else. We can put this money to actually providing justice to the communities that have been affected by criminals, I hate to use that word, by anyone that has committed a crime or violated the social norm. We can actually put that money into just actually getting them to repay their debt to society. We can put that money, or just nonviolent criminals, people who have mental illness, we can put that money towards their services. Drug addicts, we can put that in treatment services for them to mend their, just get back on track in their life. I'm sorry. But in homelessness, why are we criminalizing the poor? Why don't we just actually put the money into eradicating homelessness? What's so hard? These are not out of bounds. These are not idealistic values. This is just basic humanity and decency I'm arguing for here. How is taking someone off a park bench and throwing them in a jail cell going to do anything for society? Who are they harming because they're poor? Who are they bothering? You're not going to help them. So allow them to just mind their business. Unless you're going to provide shelter for the homeless, mental health services for the mentally ill, and treatment services for the addicted. What is a prison going to do? What is a steel cage going to do? What is this, the repressive regimes that are found inside of a prison going to do for the actual individual? And yes, I'm not ignorant to the fact that people commit violent crimes, but what is throwing them in prison for 99 years going to do? Because if we don't even consult the victim, the justice system is just so interested in throwing the book at anyone that they can, that there is no type of dialogue. And what transformative justice and restorative justice argues for is that air out the crime. Allow them to air out the crime, take responsibility for that. I'm not trying to give anyone a free pass on committing heinous acts. But I'm also not going to say that we need to throw them in a cell and throw away the key. I'm not going to argue for that either, because that hasn't worked. Clearly that's gotten us nowhere. So allowing them to actually truth and reconciliation, allowing that process to take center stage and allowing them to really just come to grips with what they've done, I think that would be a much more effective way, because these are people. These aren't wild animals. These are not they're not far removed from us. They're human beings just like us. So why don't we treat them as such? The absence of prisons is not going to be an absence. It's going to be a presence of humanity. It's going to be a presence of dignity. It's going to be the creation of actual compassion. It's going to actually be correctional. That's what it's going to do. It's going to actually be rehabilitating people. That's what it's actually going to do. It's not going to be the absence of anything. If anything, it's going to be the absence of just the violation of human rights. Because in this country, we cite human rights violations all around the globe, but when it comes to our own, it doesn't want to, we don't want to talk about that. And that's when I say the objectivity of journalism in this country is steeped in white supremacy. It is, if it were actually objective, we'd be hearing this on the news every day, because this is not tucked away as it may seem. It is very public. It is very known. So if you're actually going to be objective in reporting the news, then do it. And I don't want to talk too long. I want this to be very digestible. And if you have any questions, my Twitter is linked on the channel. So feel free to message me. Instagram is Lewis, Lewuss. And I'll feel free to point you to my resources or just discuss this further with you. But I don't want this to be another hour-long video. I just want to give my argument, give my claim, state my claim about this, and really just put something out there for someone to really think about. Because I know I've been very guilty of, prison, although I know I've never been pro-prison, but I wasn't I wasn't involved in the abolition movement of it. Now I want to be very vocal about it. I've been guilty of turning a blind eye to it. So now I actually see the violation of it, and I want to actually see it fall to shambles. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't correct anything. It is really just a money grab. It is just a way to exploit people. It doesn't do anything beneficial. It is a way to exploit human beings. And we have seen the reimagination of slavery with the mass incarceration we have in this country. We have seen the 13th Amendment be exploited. So I'm just going to leave it there. Stay radical, stay safe, stay loud, stay active. And I'll see you next time. Goodbye.